Hello, and welcome to episode 6 of the Mystic Space podcast. Today is a long-awaited podcast episode, and I know that a lot of people have been waiting for this episode in particular because this is where I'm going to cover me going to Costa Rica and the retreat that I went on. Now, I posted a little bit about this on my socials, and I've had a lot of people wanting to know more, knowing the goss, want to know the tea, what the fuck actually happened. So I am going to explain all of that in this episode. And I just want to remind everybody and start this off by saying I'm not the type of person that likes drama. I don't want to start drama. I don't want to call people out to start drama. That's not who I am. That's not what I'm about. But I do believe in standing up for myself, and I do believe in speaking my truth, and I will share what I went through because honestly, it was very important for me and it transformed me and it changed my life. It changed me in my spiritual, in my practice and everything like that, and everything that I believe in. It completely shifted me. Now I'm going to get into the juicy goss about the retreat a little bit later. First, I want to talk about Costa Rica in general. Why did I choose Costa Rica? And the fact that I went there alone. If you guys don't know, I'm from Australia. So to travel to Costa Rica, that's a really long flight. That's 15-hour flight plus other flights. So it's 24-hour in total traveling there. I am terrified of planes. Well, I was terrified of planes, and I was terrified of being on a plane for that long alone. I have been on planes for 6-7 hours with other people before, and in my past I have traveled to Europe, but again, I was with family and things like that, and I didn't have as much anxiety about planes as I did at that time when I was going to Costa Rica. It was something that I was honestly going to be held back from. I almost didn't want to go just because of the flight. And it was something that I really wanted to push myself out of my comfort zone and go anyway, which is kind of the whole reason why I did Costa Rica. Costa Rica in general was a huge transformation for me personally on my journey. It was really about me actually pushing myself out of my comfort zone and going out and doing things, because I feel the spiritual journey is really great and we learn all these things and we obtain all these things, but we're not really actually truly growing until we actually put ourselves out there in situations where we're not comfortable or we're pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone. And that's what I wanted to do with Costa Rica. There was also a lot of other things that I wanted to heal or to transform while I was on my trip in Costa Rica. So one of the things was also my codependency. I have grown up very codependent with all my previous relationships, and unfortunately that was just a natural behavior for me. And I have been obviously trying to unlearn that and realizing where that all stemmed from. And going away from my partner for 6 weeks was going to be a really big deal for me, especially because in the past, I was a type of person that didn't even believe in going on holidays without your partner. To me, I just thought that would be so strange to ever go anywhere without your partner. So for me to go somewhere for 6 weeks alone was a big deal for me. I just honestly wanted to learn to be alone because I had never really traveled when I was alone. I know a lot of people when they turn 18 or something like that, they take that time to go travel. Unfortunately, I went to uni, I was working, and I never really had that time to go solo traveling and things like that. So this was my first ever solo trip, and I decided to push myself. I didn't just do a tiny little holiday somewhere close. I was you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna go all the way on the other side of the fucking world and push myself and go to a country which, by the way, their first language is not English, it's Spanish. So I'm in a completely different country that isn't English based, and and I'm really going to push myself out of my comfort zone, and that's what I did. And I did want to learn Spanish, and I spent a long time beforehand. I literally spent a year beforehand on Duolingo trying to learn Spanish. I'm also Romanian, so Spanish is kind of easy for me as well because it's very close to my language. But yeah, learning Spanish was actually really fun, and being there and speaking Spanish was one of the highlights of my trip. Honestly, it was just really fun to speak to locals and learn more Spanish. So why did I choose Costa Rica? Well, actually it was because of the retreat. So this was a retreat that I was invited to. It's something that I had wanted to go for years before that, but COVID was there, and then I was in the process of moving as well. If you guys don't know, I moved recently from Melbourne to Queensland, which is in Australia. I moved from the bottom of our country to the top. Well, not quite the top, but closer to the top because it's much warmer here. So I didn't have the chance to go the previous years, and then I saw this opportunity to go, and I took a leap of faith and I said, fuck it, I'm going to go. The reason why I chose to go for 6 weeks was because I really wanted to go for a very long period of time. Like I really wanted to push myself, and I also wanted to give myself that time, that reset, that time that I needed to like really like submerge and be somewhere. Because when you go away for like a week or 2 weeks, it's like it kind of goes really fast, and I don't feel like you really get to like, you know, submerge into that and really like rest into that. And obviously that's a really fucking privileged thing that I was able to do. And I'm so fucking grateful and so lucky that I was able to do that, because I know that, you know, traveling for 6 weeks is a crazy amount of time for most people in the average world, and most people don't even get to do that. So I'm very lucky and I'm very grateful that I got to do that. I was actually going to stay longer, and I did end up cutting my trip short a little bit because I got sick at the start, and I was supposed to be there about a week before I was, but I got sick at the start. So I ended up postponing my trip and ended up going pretty much only like, I think I got there like the day before the retreat. And I was going to stay longer because the person who had invited me to this retreat actually was hosting a second retreat the month after, and had asked me if I wanted to host a workshop for that retreat. And of course I wanted to, because fuck yeah, like that sounds amazing. I actually want to host my own retreats one day. So that's like a great step for me to host my own workshop at a retreat. And it was going to be an art workshop, which is something I'm super passionate about. If you guys don't know, I'm obviously an artist, but this was kind of like the first red flag of this person and the whole trip in general anyway, because from that moment on, I had a weird feeling, and it was because the fact that they invited me to do this workshop, then there was very little communications. I almost like had to keep like nagging, like, hello, can you let me know if I'm going to do this workshop? Like, what's going to happen? Am I going to get paid? Like, I wasn't getting any answers. And I wanted to know because I was in the process of booking my tickets to come to Costa Rica. So I wanted to know how long I needed to book my tickets for, like how long I was going to stay, my accommodation, everything like that. Like I needed to plan it. And this person was just giving me very little communication. So in the end, I pretty much just said, look, I need to book my tickets like tomorrow. So you need to let me know. And I pretty much got no answer about the second retreat and all of that sort of stuff. So then I was just like, whatever. I had already paid for this first retreat, by the way. So I like didn't know what to do. I was like, fuck, like, do I bother going now? Cause like I'm kind of feeling a bit about it. But I'm like, you know what? Let's just, don't worry. Maybe it's just this person, like, you know, just busy, you know, whatever. Like I'm just, you know, I always try to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I'm like, you know, whatever, it's fine. Like I'm clearly not meant to do this workshop for the second retreat. So let's just ignore it. I'm going to book my tickets. Let's go. And I'll just stay for like a few weeks after the retreat to, you know, just do what I wanted to do and relax and all that stuff. So yeah, I probably should have taken that as like the first red flag that this retreat wasn't going to go well, but that's okay. We live and we learn. So Costa Rica in general was absolutely beautiful. I loved being there. I loved being submerged in the culture. I loved meeting locals. I loved seeing the world from a whole different perspective. And this is one of the reasons why I do love traveling in general, because, you know, it just really puts in perspective like a different life, because sometimes we get really like so trapped and enclosed in our own little bubble and like stuck in our own world. And we kind of forget how like other people live. Like, and it also is like a big privilege check, like a big reality check, and also just helps you have so much gratitude for like the simple things in your life, because, you know, we don't realize how privileged we are in the West, as much as our like system and our society is fucked and has definitely a lot of downfalls. We are obviously very privileged compared to a lot of people who do struggle out there. I had a lot of connection to the land there, which was beautiful. I meditated with the spirit there, the land and everything like that. It was just such a beautiful, peaceful place. Like a lot of people do say that Costa Rica is like a vortex, and I really do believe that, because the energy there is insane, like nothing else. One thing that I learned a lot while I was there was how much more I feel like I can help, and how much more passionate I became about helping other people. I mean, I was already, you know, I care about helping other people. That's why I do my content creating online and everything like that. Like I just share stuff online to help people. But I kind of wanted to do a little bit more physical one-on-one, like actual helping people. Like one thing that I did a lot was just walk around and hand out money to locals that needed it. And, you know, saw people that were like homeless or something like that. And if I didn't have cash on them to give, if I didn't have cash on me, sorry, to give to them at that moment, I would offer to buy them things. And I still remember like this one kind of guy that I kind of hung out with for a little while and made friends with. And he was so sweet, and he was like homeless. He was walking around and he asked me if I had any money, and I'm like, I genuinely don't carry any money. And this was actually towards the end of my trip, so I really wasn't having that much cash on me at that time. But I did say, like, is there a shop or something that I can take you to? Like, would you like some food? Like, is there anything I can buy you? And he was like, yeah, like, I really want to buy like a toothbrush because like I'm trying to impress this gal and like, I want to have and I was like, this is so sweet, like so cute. And yeah, so I bought him like, just some essentials like toothbrush, deodorant, stuff like that. And obviously we have homelessness in Australia as well. Like, this is not just like some new phenomenon that I'm like, oh my God, I've never seen a homeless person. Like, of course we have homeless people here too. It's just kind of like, it really reminded me how much more I want to do for them and how much more I want to help. And it also made me realize how much capitalism and just in general, how much humans can really fuck up things for other people. Like, there is something called gratification, which is basically a lot of white rich people coming from other countries into like these more poorer countries, as an example, and like living, thriving there. And also one of the main problems is that they come there, they destroy the land, they take over, and they end up paying the locals really shit wages as well because it's cheap. So they can, right? They can go there, they can build their big businesses, and then they can have locals work for them for really cheap. Whereas if you were to do that here in like Australia or in the West somewhere, I'm guessing it would be really expensive. You have to have all these other things and insurances and like all this sort of stuff, which I know you do have to have some stuff, overseas, and like, I don't know how it is exactly in Costa Rica, but like in Bali and stuff like that, obviously, a lot of these things happen across the world in general. Like, a lot of rich people end up going to these countries that are like a lot less advantaged and taking advantage of them. And that's something that I saw a lot, and it really opened my eyes to a lot in Costa Rica, which made me later realize how much that is in every single country. Like, as an example, I went to Bali this year as well, and I've been to Bali before, but now that I've come to Bali in like such a different light and with different eyes, I've noticed it so much more. And it really sucks. It really, really sucks that we do this to people. And it's kind of like one of the things that really woke me up from this retreat is how much all of these type of people do this. And it's something I'm going to talk about in my next episode is New Age spirituality, because that's kind of like the big tie of all of this, because I believe that New Age spirituality is really contributing to a lot of this, because there's people, white people going out and making retreats and yoga retreats in all these other countries and having these grand, expensive ass retreats that only limited people can really afford, and just taking advantage of the locals that are there and using that land as, a fact that just because it's cheap and better than their home country, if that makes sense. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything bad with leaving your home country and wanting to live in another country. Absolutely not. It's just more about like being mindful about your privilege being able to do that compared to like the locals that get to live there and, suffer while you just come with like a shitload of money and then you just like act like a privileged rich person. That's kind of when the problem is. And I noticed that a lot in Costa Rica. So for the retreat, I know you guys have all been waiting so much to hear about this. Now, firstly, I just want to say I'm not hating on anyone. I'm not bashing anyone. There is no hate. There's no anger or anything like that towards anyone that attended the retreat or the retreat host leaders or anything like that. I'm very grateful that I ended up going because I learnt so much. Even if it wasn't like the way I thought it was going to learn, with everything that, I thought I was going to go through while I was there, I actually ended up learning from such a different perspective, which is very beautiful and I'm very grateful for. So again, this is going to tie into a lot of New Age spirituality, which I will get into a little bit more in depth in my next episode. But this was kind of the starting point of me really waking up and realizing that New Age spirituality is very surface level, can be very detrimental to people's health and well-being, because unfortunately, a lot of these people who are preaching New Age spirituality, who are being teachers and leaders, are actually not people who have the space to hold for others to that capacity. What I mean by this is that it kind of can seem very exciting to do these things, like be a leader, be a coach, be a retreat leader, whatever it is. But unfortunately, a lot of the motive for these people are money behind. And the reason why I say this is because that's their focus. And that's what New Age spirituality focus is all about: manifesting and abundance and manifesting and all of that, which is all very, very surface level spirituality. And this is something I noticed a lot more about the retreat. And it wasn't like the retreat specifically, it was more just about like the type of people that attend these type of retreats, like the type of people that are into New Age spirituality. And that's just because of social media and everything like that, that's fine. Like, it's not a hate to anybody who's in New Age spirituality, because I nearly got sucked into it. And I don't think people really realize, because we're not educated and we're not taught about it. So that's kind of why I want to speak up about all of it. So one thing I've noticed about New Age spirituality in general, and this was something that brought to my attention while I was at the retreat, was that, a lot of these practices and things that we use and say within our practice are actually pretty much stolen from cultures that have been around for a long time. These cultures are not really respected and not really honored. Like, there's so many people talking about like chakras and karma and kundalini rising and all of these sort of things, which are a part of a specific culture, a specific religion. And the reason why I say that, this is negative or bad, I guess, in New Age spirituality is because we just swipe up the surface level things and we kind of go, oh, how can we sell this? So that's kind of like the problem with it, because we're not actually learning the root of the culture, the whole root of the reason and their system and their beliefs and, their practices and their gratitude and everything that comes at such a deep, 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 deep level of spirituality. It's not just all about chakras and crystals and manifesting abundance. That's just very surface level shit. And I think being so focused on all of that sort of stuff, especially manifesting abundance, really brings out spiritual ego. As an example, they were burning white sage. Now, I'm not saying that you're not allowed to use white sage, because I've used white sage. I love white sage. However, it is a part of a practice that is not a part of my culture, and it was a part of nobody's culture there. And using it with no respect or understanding of the actual culture where it came from, understanding if you got it from, an actual indigenous person that sources it locally and ethically, then there's a problem in that. And there are a lot of practices out there that I believe are, there are some things like closed practices, as an example. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of something of a closed practice, but that basically means that a closed practice is something that belongs to a certain culture that is not allowed or should not be allowed to be used by anybody outside of that culture, because it's sacred. It's a part of their culture. Now, I do believe that we're all humans and we're all meant to be on this planet together and we're all supposed to share and everything like that. Like, I am not the type of person to say that you can or can't do anything, okay? I'm not here to tell you what you can or can't do. But I do believe in really, really, really educating yourself about these practices and asking Indigenous people, working and learning from them. If you're going to learn Hinduism about chakras and karma and kundalini rising, learn about their religion, learn about their culture, learn about where it came from, learn about everything with it, not just what you're nitpicking from the internet because of angel numbers and chakras and all that crap. Like, even Reiki, as an example. Reiki is like a specific type of healing using certain numbers and symbols and things like that. And most people just like wave their hands around and say that they're doing Reiki. They don't actually know the depths of it all. Or you can get like your Reiki certificate online in like 2 days now, which is just ridiculous. Like, that to me is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, we're just using spirituality and trying to make money off it. Like, how can you teach something that takes years worth of practice, something that was passed down, something that, you need to learn it by yourself and walk that path for a while to be able to practice? How can you learn all of that in 2 days? Another thing I wanted to say is that there was no actual professional help there at the retreat. And one thing that I would say is important to have that is because if you're going to host a retreat that specifically says it's for healing, like we're doing spiritual work, healing, all of that sort of stuff, especially because there's plant medicine around, I believe that there should be somebody who can actually hold space for people who are in these moments, because especially when you're doing plant medicine, like, that can really open people up. Like, I did shrooms for the first time while I was in Costa Rica, and by the way, I completely loved it, but that's going to come into another episode because I'm going to do a whole episode about plant medicine. But, there was people who were on shrooms that were like crying and like, really like letting out a lot of emotions, a lot of heavy stuff, and a lot of things were coming to surface, which, is great for their healing. But if they're just having, me that's just comforting them and I don't actually really know shit and I actually don't really have the space to hold for them, then I don't think that's very good for their mental health, because it could actually be very detrimental, which is something else that I want to say. Doing all these plant medicines can be very detrimental. It's not just all fun and games, which is something that I really disliked about this retreat, especially from this one retreat host that, I have the issue with, that you'll hear about soon. It seems very drug and fun and like, let's take shrooms, let's take drugs, let's have fun, let's party kind of vibe. But that's all good. That's all well and truly good. Like, I totally think that she would be great at hosting like that type of retreat, like just a fun party drug retreat. But when you're mixing that with like really deep spiritual healing, there really needs to be somebody who actually gives a shit. And I mean, actually, somebody who can actually hold space. And that's just something that I don't think that they could do. We did quite a few different types of plant medicine, which was amazing. I loved, obviously not just all psychedelic ones. We did cacao as well, which was beautiful. I had a really big heart-opening experience with that one. We also did San Pedro, which I'm pretty sure that's what it was called, which is like a cactus kind of thing. And that was really cool. I didn't really feel it too much because I couldn't really drink a lot of it. But yeah, to me, I think that doing something like mushrooms should really be facilitated with a professional that can actually help people move through their trips, especially, if they're going to be having like a bad trip or something like that. And I just don't think that that was there. And with doing a lot of plant medicine, especially when you're pairing it with doing all of this sort of healing, right? Like, because this retreat was very, very intense. And the reason why I say it's very intense is there was always something on, and we always had like workshops. And on top of that, they allowed every attendee to host their own like workshop as well. So we were kind of like attending people's workshops. So we were like constantly doing something. And that is a lot. That's like one thing that I really wanted to note about this retreat. There was not really a lot of downtime, a lot of time to actually integrate what we were going through. Because like, you have to imagine, like, there are people like screaming, crying, releasing their like biggest traumas. Like, you're hearing people's deep, deep traumas continuously. Like, you're hearing sexual assaults, you're hearing like, abuse, you're hearing like DV, you're hearing like all of these really traumatic experiences from all of these people. Like, and it's not just like one or two people, there's like a few people there that you're hearing all of this continuous like traumatic experiences. And as another attendee there, if you don't actually have the space to hold, to hear all of that, that can also be very detrimental to your health, because hearing a lot of other people's trauma, if you're not in that headspace to actually really be there and like hold that space for somebody else, and also still be grounded within yourself so it doesn't really affect you, right? Because like, obviously hearing someone else's sexual assault trauma might trigger your own sexual assault trauma. So then you're going through your own shit. Like, this retreat isn't just like a happy dappy, we're sitting in the sun retreat. This is like, you're working a lot of shit. Like, a lot of shit is coming up. You're hearing a lot of shit. People are really like confessing. We're crying. We're holding each other. Like, it was very fucking intense. Like, it was really fucking intense. And with that there was not really that much space to actually connect with the community that we were creating there. One big theme that everybody kept talking about was like, oh, community, community. But then we didn't really have that much time to actually spend with each other and like have that community bonding. Most of the time when we did, it was like late after dinner, and not everybody stayed up as well. So it was kind of just like a few people staying up. I personally barely slept because I was just really excited to be there. I just really wanted to make the most of it. I wanted to be up. I loved the atmosphere. The retreat place was absolutely phenomenal. Like, I could not say anything bad about the place. It was incredible. The area was nice. The views were amazing. Everything was like grown on the property. It was so beautiful, organic. Like, everything was delicious. Everything was plant-based, which was fucking fantastic for me. You could get smoothies like all day whenever you wanted. Well, not all day, but like, I think it was like till 7 or 10 p.m. or something like that. You could get smoothies, which was really good. Healthy, everything that was grown on the land, like that. The place was absolutely phenomenal. Like, I would love to go there again, but I just didn't feel like we actually had that much time to be together, which kind of really sucked. And now I don't actually really mind, because it didn't seem like a lot of people there actually genuinely cared about having community and keeping that community, because I'll get into that in a second. But one thing I wanted to note is to just be very careful when you're going through a spiritual awakening, whether you're going on a retreat or not, whoever you're listening to, whoever you surround yourself with, it's really important that, these people are going to actually be helping you on your journey and not hindering you. And one thing I'm going to say is that a lot of the times we think that we're doing the right thing for us, and it actually could be hindering us. Like, somebody that attended our retreat unfortunately has had a psychotic break since then. And I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's not my position, it's not my place. And this is not the only person that, has struggled. I actually heard pretty much most people say that they struggled a lot coming back home, especially, and then trying to integrate, going through such a huge transformation, so much traumatic shit getting brought up and shifts happening, because, like, obviously you're going to go through so much depths and waking up to yourselves and realizing so much. So when you go through all of that and then you have to go back to your regular old work, or, your regular old people who are just talking about the weather, and you're suddenly having this huge spiritual awakening, probably even deeper than you thought you were, like, it's really hard and it's a huge struggle for a lot of people, which is why I say it's so important that we are grounded and that we are centered within ourselves when we are going through this spiritual awakening, because we can get so excited about, like, spirit this, spirit that, spirit that. Oh my God, we can do this. Oh my God, we can do that. Oh, we can do this. But, like, if we're not grounded, this is where people go into psychosis. Literally, this is why it is so fucking dangerous. And I hear this often all the time with people going through spiritual awakenings, and they end up turning to religion, or they end up going batshit crazy, because it is so much information and sometimes you're not ready for it. And, like, as an example, plant medicine can really speed that up. They can really give you a shitload more information. If you're not ready to actually receive that information, it can be very detrimental to you, which is why I say these type of retreats can be very toxic, because they're there for a week, they care about you to get your money, and then after that, they don't really give a shit about you. Like, they're not actually there to help you, because you need a lot more support than that anyway. These things aren't supposed to be gonna go throw you in, some other country for 1 week, have these humongous transformations, and then go back to absolutely basically no support. No, like, you're supposed to be in a community with people going through the same thing and actually helping each other go through it all together. Regardless, I still had my own personal experiences, my personal own transformations, and I'm, again, very grateful that I went. I had an amazing time with certain experiences. Like, I absolutely loved the cacao ceremony that we got led through by a Indigenous person as well. That was really beautiful. I loved the story of the cacao plant. That really set me into, like, a trance, and I cried. I cried so much. I was releasing so much. I just felt like my heart opening so much. Like, it was such a beautiful story. And I'm not going to even try to say the story, because, first of all, it's way too long for a podcast episode, but also I'm probably going to butcher it. And I don't think I'm of the place to say the story anyway. But it's basically like the spirit of the cacao plant, how it became like a plant and all of that sort of stuff. And it was just really beautiful. It opened my heart. I cried so much. And it was basically like a lesson of that, everything has its place. Everything has its lesson. And it was really beautiful. I can't really, like, it's one of those things that, like, you just kind of had to be there to understand, like, the experience. And obviously everyone's experience is so different. So, like, even if you were there, you probably would not have had my experience, because everyone was having their own experiences, which is the beautiful thing about us humans, right? But also, that's why it can also be dangerous or detrimental if you don't have the right support, because, everyone is so different. So everyone needs specific support. Everyone's different. Everyone needs different type of support. And that's really important to establish before you going on the spiritual awakening, or while you're going through the spiritual awakening, especially if you're going to go do big things like plant medicine, ayahuascas, like retreats, all of these sort of things, which I know is really popular and really big in the spiritual community. But it's really important to stay grounded. Like, it's so much more important to just be a human and be grounded in your spirituality than be like, oh my God, I can do like 10 ayahuasca sessions in a year, and, like, I'm so, like, evolved, and I'm so spirit, and I'm enlightened, and all that sort of stuff, because you end up so stuck up in there that you go a little crazy. You do. Okay, so basically, while I was at the retreat, I was feeling a little off about it. And it was about specific people, mostly the retreat host that, I had a conflict with, which I will get into in a second. And, just more like the people that are very into New Age spirituality, very into like the manifesting abundance and everything like that. Like I could almost kind of understand why a lot of people's motives are money and everything like that. It just didn't resonate with me. Again, it's no hate or anything like that. It's just, it wasn't for me. While I was there, I realized this wasn't really like my kind of vibe in that sense. I thought it was, and maybe when I booked it at that time, it probably would have been, but I also changed a lot until I got to that point. So while I was there, I kind of really realized like this is not really my view on spirituality, and this is like not really what's really important to me, the practices and everything like that. So like I said, everyone was hosting their own little workshops. I personally didn't host mine. I wanted my one to be an art workshop, which I couldn't manage and I couldn't, organize in that time to be able to get art supplies and all of that sort of stuff. And I was like, no, it's just too much effort and I didn't want to do it. So I didn't end up hosting a workshop, but I did attend a couple. Towards the end, I did stop attending a few workshops because, again, like I said in the past, it was too much. And I'm pretty self-aware, so I was very aware that it's just too much for a human to handle hearing all that sort of stuff. I personally just didn't want to be a part of it anymore in that sense, so I stopped attending most workshops. Obviously, if you weren't like at a workshop or anything like that, you could just be like relaxing at the resort, and that was really beautiful. Like one time I was literally falling asleep in the pool and they were doing like a really intense workshop. It was like an anger workshop, and they were screaming, like actually screaming out into the jungle, which, obviously a huge transformation is really good for them. But again, like that's a lot of energy, intense energy. Like I felt it from being in the pool, and I was just like sitting there, like trying to transmute it, like being in my own world and being happy. But, that's like one of the workshops I'm very grateful that I did step out on, because again, it is a lot. And it's not that I don't want to be there for my community, because obviously I want to be there for everyone that was there. Everyone that I met were lovely, and I do believe have, really good, genuine souls. I think it's just like New Age spirituality kind of just like traps people into like this whole, it kind of like sucks people in. And it makes you care about money. And unfortunately, that really sucks, because it kind of deters those good souls to only care about money. So for me, the reason why was like, again, too much of that like shadow work, too much of that deep transformation things, but with not enough time to integrate and to relax and to enjoy. Because I believe that spirituality, yes, it's all about, shadow work and figuring out our triggers and, working through them and everything like that. But one of the things that I believe actually help us a lot in our spiritual path is being a human, having fun, being in the present moment, and actually genuinely having a good community, like actual genuine connections with people where you have a good laugh, where you can actually talk about these things and people actually really care and can have that space and hold for you. So I ended up getting the fact that I didn't go to all of the workshops thrown back in my face by one of the retreat hosts in a messages, because we did end up having some beef. And the reason why the beef started, so basically I made this post, and if you guys follow me on social media, you know that I share my insights, my opinions, everything like that all the time on there. And I mean, I'm going through a huge spiritual awakening. I'm learning a lot. And while I'm in Costa Rica, I'm getting even more messages and downloads and opinions. And, I'm observing life in like a whole different light, whether it was from the retreat or outside the retreat, social media, still online, I'm observing things in such a different light. So my post was a very general post of insights I had, and one of the retreat hosts actually messaged me and accused me of making that post in regards to the retreat, like it was attacking people from the retreat. I said, no, it's not, it wasn't anything specific. It wasn't to target at anyone specific. It was just like a general observation that I have made in my life. And, obviously Costa Rica has brought this out to me. This was like after the retreat, by the way. This wasn't like during the retreat. Through the messages, I basically just kept saying this post was not about anyone at the retreat, nor was it targeted to the retreat specifically. It was just about my general observations I have made. And I had to keep trying to say that because this person was not listening to me. At one point, I realized this person's not even listening to me. And this is really extremely unprofessional coming from a host that is just blatantly attacking the shit out of me for one of my own personal posts, just because they believe that it's targeted towards them or others. And one other thing that they said to me as well was that other people had approached them saying that my post was triggering for them. But at this point, we had a group chat, and I left that group chat and I sent a message saying exactly why. I said, I'm sorry if my post offended anybody, because it was definitely not the intention at all. And that I just wanted to say that if anyone had a problem with me, I would love it if, you came up to me and just talk to me about it, because I'm very open and honest and straight up. And I just want to sort shit out, right? Like, you have an issue with me, let's talk about it. I can apologize if I've done something wrong. We probably had a miscommunication or something like that. Let's move through it. But unfortunately, that did not happen. I actually had people who, even said they loved me so much on the retreat, just block me. And that's exactly what I mean. Like, this is a part of like the whole fake community thing. Like, there's people that are together like, oh my God, community, I love community. People are so important. Like, I love you, I love you, I love you. And then push comes to shove and they're gone. And that's exactly why I got upset initially about this whole thing. Because for me, like, the whole reason why you're having a retreat and hosting it and bringing people together is to do that, right? So to attack somebody and then not want to actually hear them out, not actually want to solve anything at all, and just blatantly straight up attack them, made me feel like, well, this isn't really fucking much of a community. Like, this isn't actually a genuine community, is it? So this is the same retreat host that I had issues with beforehand with the whole, am I going to host a workshop for the second retreat? I also had issues with them right after the retreat because I was staying in Costa Rica and I wanted to hang out with them because that was like something we were both excited for, me coming to Costa Rica, because we had talked online for a few years before I had attended the retreat. So like, I thought we were friends, like I wanted to hang out with her. So one time we were meant to hang out after the retreat, and she got really like snappy at me because I didn't understand that she was going to go there and wait for me alone. She did not communicate that to me, and I was waiting to be picked up by somebody to take me there. And she was really angry about the fact that I didn't want to just walk there because it was only 2 minutes away. And I'm like, well, it's dark. I'm in Costa Rica alone and I don't really feel comfortable walking and I don't really like doing that. So basically one of the things that they said was, your post directly targets people sharing their emotions, traumatic experiences, and just their own personal thoughts and messages, which was a huge, again, what I kept trying to say. This seems like a huge miscommunication because that's definitely not what I'm trying to do. I was one of the people who attended the retreats. I was also vulnerable. I was also channeling. I was channeling aliens. I was literally a part of it all. It's not like I was just like some weirdo sitting out and not doing anything and just like absolutely judging everybody. Like, I was a part of it all. I cried with everybody. I had a fucking orgasm in front of everybody because of the sound healing journey, but that's something else. Like, I was vulnerable. So this is when I noticed that this person was clearly just triggered and projecting it onto me. So one other thing that they said was, I know you missed a bunch of workshops where people were at their most vulnerable, so maybe there's just a disconnect there. So again, I was kind of like almost attacked for not attending every single workshop, although I specifically said like, this should be a safe space and I should be able to attend or not attend how many workshops I should be able to or want to, because that's what they said at the start as well. Like, there's no pressure, do whatever you want kind of thing. But if there's no pressure and then I get attacked for it later, is there really no pressure? Again, this person just kept attacking me for making a post that was shaming her people that attended her retreat. And I literally kept trying to say, this was not about anyone at the retreat specifically. This is literally just a general post. Obviously, if the fucking shoe fits, wear it. Like, obviously, if people are getting triggered, then there's a reason, because that's like what I believe about anything, right? Now, again, I'm not trying to be hurtful or, attack people and be like, oh, you're a shit person or anything like that. Anyway, I'm not going to go back and forth and like, it's done. We've moved on. I'm over it. It's just more like the fact that I feel like it was just very unprofessional. For me personally, if I'm a retreat host and somebody was unhappy or anything like that with the retreat, I would be talking to them, asking them questions, things like that, and just being more professional than the way it was handled. It was very much just an attack on me, and that was something that I did not appreciate as somebody who's supposed to be a safe space that's hosting a retreat that's supposed to be bringing people together and into community and really caring for each other. So to me, I just didn't feel like that was what was happening and what was displayed. So that's why I left the group and I unfollowed, and I ended up actually unfollowing a lot of people that attended the retreat, mostly because, again, same thing, one of them just blocked me out of the blue, and that really was like, well, this is someone that just said they loved me like a week ago and now is blocking me. Like, But also, again, because I don't really resonate with a lot of their content, with what they're saying. And this is, again, no hate to anybody. Everyone I met, I had a beautiful connection with. I can only send love towards them. Like, there's no hate or anything like that. It's just that, we're just different people. We're just different people on different paths, and that's totally okay. I did end up trying to, explain myself further through a message to this retreat host. And I sent like a really, really long message and said, like, look, like, this just didn't really need to happen. Like, I really wish you just came up to me and asked me about it first. And like, now I feel like I have to leave the group, which I did. And like, it kind of just really sucked. And I felt really like hindered with my relationship with everybody else because, I obviously everyone else knew. And there was like a couple of people that, didn't really like obviously what happened and said it was fucked up and everything like that. But, a lot of these people still spoke to her, still shared her posts, still all of that sort of stuff. So to me, that just didn't seem in alignment for me. And I just removed myself from the situation. Again, no hate or anything like that to any of these people. It was just more like, hey, we're different. And, I don't really want to see you sharing her stuff because for me personally, I just don't think that somebody like that should be hosting a retreat. And I know that's going to sound really harsh. And I'm not trying to attack anyone or be mean or anything like that. And it's not even just this person specifically. It's a lot of people I see in the spiritual community that are, retreat hosts or leaders or coaches or anything like that, that I just feel like probably just need to spend a little more time with themselves, maybe try to find some other motive besides money, because I feel like a lot of these people, they do have money as a huge motive behind them. And I know that it doesn't always get displayed that way on social media. But yeah, again, this was just not my community, and that's totally fine. And I learned so much from going on this retreat. So I'm still so grateful that I went. And I have no hate for anyone, not even the retreat host. It's just, it is what it is. We're just different and our paths don't align, and that's totally fine. I wish it was handled a little bit better. I wish I didn't have to leave the group and I didn't have to lose connections with, a few people that I did feel like I made a genuine connection with while I was there. But clearly it wasn't, so that's totally fine. It was still a beautiful lesson, and I still loved connecting with people who, were genuine, or what I felt was genuine at the time anyway. We were all vulnerable with each other, and it was beautiful in that sense when we were doing that, when we could just talk to each other. Like at one point we were all cuddling pretty much like on this net that they have at the resort. It's like really beautiful, and like we were just pretty much stayed there all night. It was like really nice. So I loved the connections I had with those people, and I will always cherish them and value them. Even if we don't talk anymore, that's totally fine. Like, again, I totally understand. Everyone's on their own path. And I think that's like one thing that I think the community in general needs to understand and be more okay with. Like, you don't have to hate somebody just because you don't like what they do, and just because you don't want to be in the same alignment with them. Like, if you don't want to follow them on social media anymore or anything like that, doesn't mean you hate them. And I think that's what the spiritual community in general needs to learn, just actual genuine care for each other. And even if you don't align or whatever, that's totally fine. You don't have to hate on that person. You just understand that you have different views, different opinions, and different alignment, and that's totally okay to be on a different path and to still love each other. But the biggest lessons that I take from Costa Rica was how much more I want to help people, how much more I want to be a part of community, how much more I want to be a part of a genuine community, and how much I want to help others find a genuine community and help them find a community that will actually help them through their spiritual awakening and through their path, because I think that's really important. I don't think we're meant to do this alone. I think community is really fucking important, helping us be stronger, move together through this fucking spiritual awakening, and in general make like the earth a better place. So like we need to learn to come together and make earth a better place regardless of our differences. I definitely gained a shitload more confidence within myself. Obviously, just going on a solo trip in general was a huge confidence boost, like being able to do it and putting myself there, being vulnerable in front of like random strangers. Like, you don't know these people when you first meet them, and it's like completely scary to just start crying and being like completely yourself in front of people you don't really know. So I'm very grateful that I was able to experience that to a whole new level, and that really helped open me up and everything like that. It really taught me the importance of healing within a community, in a genuine community, and with the right support, just making sure that when you're going through a spiritual awakening, it's not all about like plant medicines and having fun and ayahuasca and chakras. I also really learned how to be grounded within myself, within my practices, within my own beliefs, and to learn to use discernment, because I know on the spiritual path we can kind of get really excited and be like, oh my God, that person's saying this. Oh my God, we can do this. Oh my God, we can do that. And we get really caught up in the spiritual world, like I said before, which can be very detrimental and typically leads to people going crazy or having psychosis or something like that, which is not something to fucking joke about. Like, it's really scary and really real and happens a lot. So it was really good that I was able to stay grounded within my belief and see all these other people and still respect them for their beliefs. You know, like that person believes that person believes that, that's totally fine, but that's just not my path. And I think that's really important to establish when you're on a spiritual awakening, or like just in general with yourself, like with your own beliefs and opinions and what you like and everything like that. You know, you can take other people's opinions and other people's perspective and, you know, integrate it in your life if you want, of course. But, you know, you need to learn to have that discernment, not just because you look up to this person and this person is saying something, so you just believe them no matter what, or you just like start implementing their practice just because they're doing it. You know, learning to do it yourself, learning what works for you, learning your own practices, you know, taking little things from here and there and integrating it within your own life. I think that's really fucking important, because otherwise we kind of just end up being like thrown into this and just doing what everyone else thinks and what everyone else is doing. And we're not really actually being our own selves, which is kind of like the whole point of spirituality. Like, the whole point of spirituality is you being awake to the fact that you're a spiritual being in a human experience and that you're fucking unique. Like, you specifically have your own traits, your own personality, your own passions, your own purpose, whatever. And it's different to everybody else. And that's the beautiful thing. So you need to learn to figure that out within yourself, not just follow what someone else is doing. Even if you align with a lot of their practices and everything like that, like, you just shouldn't follow somebody else just because they're doing something. You know, make sure that it actually aligns with you and with your practice and your morals and your values. So I will forever cherish my Costa Rica trip, because it honestly changed me, transformed me. I loved it. I don't regret a single thing about it. Honestly, I would have loved to stay longer, even though at that time I was kind of really ready to go home, because I kind of just really wanted my own grounded space. I felt a little bit all over the place. I also had my bleed while I was in Costa Rica, which is very different to bleed overseas for, like, I'm pretty sure the first time, because usually I don't travel when I've got my period. Like, I am, especially now that I've learned to have such a sacred like connection with my body and my bleed, I don't do anything for the whole week when I'm on my bleed. So that was like very new for me, but it was really nice because like I was just in another country. I just got to do whatever I want. I just laid around the beach and like in my hotel and all that sort of stuff. So that was beautiful. And honestly, just being alone in another country was just so transformative. It was just honestly life changing. And I do recommend that everybody, if you can, go do a solo trip, because you learn so much about yourself and you just get to be with yourself. Because usually when you go on holiday with someone else, you know, you have to take them into consideration, like what do they want to do, what do they want to eat and everything like that, which is fine. Like, obviously traveling with other people is amazing, it's fun, I love it. Like, I'm not saying, you know, it's bad, but also going by yourself is also fucking incredible, because you can do whatever it is that you want. You don't have to like see what someone else wants to do. If you want to go do that thing, and also teaches you to push yourself out of your boundaries and like push yourself out of your comfort zone and go do things by yourself without having to wait for somebody else. You know, I think we all do that in life, where we, you know, we kind of like wait for somebody else. We're like waiting for a partner, or like all these things to do and start living our life, and we don't have to. That's one thing that the solo trip really taught me, is I don't have to wait for anybody to live my life or to do the things that I love doing. I can go out there and do it myself. And that's one thing I want to show you as well and tell you that you can do as well, because I think it's really important to spend that time with yourself and figure out what it is that you truly want to do, regardless of a partner or friends or anything like that, because like this is your life and you should be living it how you want to be. Anyway, this concludes my episode about Costa Rica. I hope you enjoyed. I absolutely, again, cherish Costa Rica, and I have learnt so much insight from it, and I will be continuously sharing that all with you guys. Anyway, on my next episode, we will be getting into New Age spirituality, because that's something that came to light to me a lot while I was on this Costa Rica trip. So it kind of goes in hand. So I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next episode. Blessings.